PJNet.TV Part 2, bottom of the hour, and we stayed a little late last segment, so we're a little late getting started off, but the bumper's running, JD's waiting on us, and we'll skip some of the pleasantries and start the countdown to Studio 8. Okay, good afternoon, good evening. PJNet.TV. It's Thursday night here on the East Coast. It's a little after 9:30, and that is the night we all do something very, very special. And we take a tour, a guided tour, a trip around the Cross W Ranch, which you see featured here on the stage, but that will soon change, and we will bring on board the caretaker of the Cross W Ranch, J.D. Wininger, who is relaxing in his home in Cooper, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Well, JD, thanks for giving us a little extra time for Ben's segment.
You bet. I always love learning things from Mr. Ben. Although I got to tell you, you got one up tonight, Mr. Ben, Miss Shannon. And I'm thinking back through it, and I think it was the 7th grade. My history teacher, Mrs. Shaftstall, was telling us about the American bald eagle and national symbol, and she had told the class that Ben Franklin had recommended the turkey. I'd made the comment, well, Miss Shannon has wrote a book about this. And she said, actually, he never said that except in a letter to his daughter. So he never preferred that formal thing. And I'm going, there you go. Leave it to a school teacher that I stand corrected. But always love learning things. And Miss Shannon is such a sweet lady, and just such a gentle way to, no, that's not quite what happened. And I appreciate it.
There's many legends about our founding fathers, and you wonder how much is legend and how much is fact. It probably all started out, but there's a spiritual lesson there. You start out with a nugget of truth, and it's easy to, and that's, in fact, Ben is so well versed in so many topics. It is reputed that he was going to be a contestant on Jeopardy, but then all of the other contestants dropped out.
I can imagine that. Yeah,
that's the unfair advantage with someone like that. But I'm really, I always enjoy his not just walking in encyclopedia knowledge, but using that as a way of imparting not only knowledge, not only information,
brings it together,
but wisdom. To get you thinking and say, here's why. It's not just. It's just, he's that. Your favorite uncle kind of guy.
Yes, he's that's as writing friends go. Mr. Ben is one of my favorite sounding boards when I have an idea or I'm thinking about something. And we were messaging back and forth on Facebook. I think it was last evening, back and forth on a blog post that'll come out about a month from now. And, I was just getting his take on things and his perspective. And you're right, there's a lot of wisdom in that young man. I enjoy chatting with him.
Yeah. Well, folks, if you are in seek of wisdom, you have come to the right place, because the PJNet team is really full of it. Okay, wisdom, that is. And now JD has a little wisdom of his own, and he talks about the things that he learns around not only on the ranch, but in his life experiences at jdwininger.com. Now, it's kind of neat. I kind of like the way it worked out. Your blog comes out on Wednesday, but I refrain until Thursday posting anything about it to kind of let it have its own life. And but I found it there was no surprises in there for me this time. No, lead up to the big punch at the end, the big secret, the big spiritual truth, the big reveal. But it just was just a warm story about the importance of that bonding among ourselves and as part of a bigger unit. So being a coach, I certainly was on board the whole time, but you presented it from a little bit different point of view.
Yes, sir. My post this week was entitled "A Faithful Band," and a term. In fact, there was a I think it was an HBO series or somewhere years ago about Easy Company in the 101st Airborne called a Band of Brothers. And unless you've been there, done that, it's hard to understand. Now, as a football coach, sir, you certainly understand what it is to take a group of aggressive young men, shall we say, and break them down to their base core and then rebuild them as a
Build them back.
cohesive unit, either offense or defense, so that they can achieve whatever their objective or achieve their mission. Well, much was the same with the military. And in the military, they use a term called TRADOC, or TRADOC, for training and doctrine. And that is the prescribed methodology by which you break these young people down and you teach them these new skills and things like that. And it was something that, as a young 17-year-old at the time in the military, that just floored me at how efficient they were at taking, you had old redneck country boys like me, and you had, Anthony Catrone from New York City. And I mean, boy, talk about slick and sophisticated and things, and you had guys that the courts said you either go to jail or you go serve in the Army. You got a choice here, kid. And all kinds of from different walks of life. And they brought us all together. And within just a few weeks, really, Coach, we started looking and acting and sounding like a unit. We were talking about what we as a unit would achieve or could do, or what we needed to do to achieve whatever that learning objective or training objective was for the week. And to see that transformation take place, I'm going, wow, that's something. Of course, I look at it now as an old guy from a very different perspective, but doesn't the Bible instruct us to be the same thing? Aren't we supposed to disciple those coming behind us and share with them the wisdom and knowledge that we've gained and help ease their transition, help their learning to become a Christian and to walk with Christ, help them do that a little bit easier? And in whether you're a soldier or you're a soldier for Christ, the kids song that we like to do in Sunday school is I'm in the Lord's army, and I can't in the infantry and the cavalry and artillery and things. But if you either way, either in the United States Army or in the Lord's army, you have to one of the first things you have to sacrifice is yourself. And you just have to relinquish your self-control of everything and give yourself over to the transformation that needs to take place if you're going to be an effective part of that team. And the same thing happens when you're Christians too, Coach. We need to make that change. So I looked at that and I thought, boy, there was a lot of commonalities between those things. And when I was in the military, I think you know that in 1978 I was the Army top shot. So, I could put 3 rounds at 500 yards within the circumference of a dime. But and I used to set on, I won't tell you what mountaintop I set on, but Rhineswood Rosta Ica, and I would set up there and we'd listen to the Sandinistas, and they're talking back and forth, and I'd interpret. We'd intercept the radios, and I would interpret in things. Learned how to navigate the jungles and unmapped parts of the world, if you will, and also learned how to instruct others as I continued on in the military in the tradecraft of others. Now, our friend Monty Hobbs was a drill sergeant in the Army. I bet most folks in PJ Net didn't know that about Sergeant First Class Monty Hobbs.
I liked him before. I like him even better now.
Fort Knox, Kentucky. Yeah. But I taught young soldiers, how to be soldiers, and it was funny because when I had just come out of Ranger School and things, and I went to Hunter, it was the old guys, it was the old sergeants and things that kind of took us under their wing. Not all of them, but the ones that really cared about the unit took us under the wings, and they taught us the things that you can't learn in a book, or you don't learn in ranger school or at sniper school and things. And that was so important. And when it came time, I was able to do the same thing, and that's an important thing. But as Christians, don't we do the same thing? We have to keep focused on the target, right? We talked about in-game thinking a few weeks ago, Coach. We have to interpret different languages. And from a church perspective, talk to a young person today. They don't talk the same language I did when I was their age. It's very different to understand them and to understand the excessive amounts of peer pressure that young people are under today and things. So understanding that and finding ways to relate to them. Of course, we have to also know how to navigate safely through this hostile world that we're living in, don't we? And it's important, again, to instruct those that come after us in the way of the Lord. So the discipleship, Coach. So I just tried to draw those comparisons between the two. Of course, I wanted to make sure I give a nod to my brothers and sisters in arms, some I had served with, some who never came home. And that's for Memorial Day. It's a different time. But thinking of them, and I ended it with a poem, Coach, for those that have never read it. Sergeant Charles Province wrote this poem. I want to say it was back in the 70s, early 70s, when it first came out, and he added to it again in 2005. But he is actually the curator, if I get this right, of the Patton Museum up in Kansas City. So, but it's called "It Is the Soldier," and it's quite a powerful poem. If you've never read that, take a moment and go to my blog this week and give that a read, please, folks.
It is not the first time I had seen that poem, but it is so profound. And really, I'm going to put this website back up there. If you're not familiar with the poem, it is the soldier. As you read each line through that, it's a little shocking. It's almost disrespectful if you don't read the second line. So it's pretty shocking. Quite a great piece of work. There are so many benefits of the koinonia, the bonding between individuals and teamwork. And I'll give an example of my cousin was in the 82nd Airborne, and he virtually raised himself. He's not what you would call a model citizen, okay? And I'm pretty sure he's one of those ones the Army got because of a judge, you might say. And that was back in the 70s, and very different world back then in race relations. And he would be among the top bigots that I would know. Very crude, very vocal, very opinionated about his bigotry. But I remember he came back and we visited, and he told me, when you're in training and you're climbing that obstacle, that black hand that reaches down that you grab a hold to, that's not a black man, that's your brother. That's a man. Amen. I thought, what a transformation. What a truly miraculous transformation, folks. Because, we can sit here and argue amongst ourselves and fight amongst ourselves, but when the times get tough, at the end of the day, we bond together. And I shudder to think what it's going to take for this country to come together.
Yes, sir.
It's not going to be a speech, I can tell you that, no matter who gives it. And it's troubling. I've also heard it's not binary, but I'm going to say that in spite of the incorrectness of it. But I think when you look at raising up generationally, okay, or walking in your discipleship, there needs to be a link forward to a more mature Christian.
Yeah.
Okay, who's been there and survived it, and you can learn the hard way, or you can learn the easy way. And he might have learned the hard way and would prefer, he or she, but would prefer that you. But there also needs to be a link back. That we need to be discipling in a chain of three, so to speak. I don't have three hands, so we'll have to just kind of use your head, okay? But the older I get, the more aware I am of, for example, our PJNet family, demographically very old. Where are those 20-somethings, 30-somethings? Or who are we going to pass the torch to if we don't recruit them? The Army recruits, they don't just open their doors and people walk in. But we've got to train. We've got to first recruit, and then we've got to train up spiritually the next legion of the Christian army.
Yes, you bring up a good point, especially in the church, Coach. And I would hazard, and I don't think my church is any different from any others, but if you were to look inside your church, who is in those leadership positions? And I understand the deacons and things, but who's on the board of directors? Is it all the old farts like myself that, and we'll tell you how things are going to do because we're the most experienced? You look at who most of the volunteers are, and they're the older church members because we just roll up our sleeves and go do it. But we miss out on giving those young people the opportunity to spread their wings and fly, to go back to kind of the way Ben was talking about. We have to imping those young people and give them an opportunity to head a committee or to oversee Operation Christmas Child or some project so that they can gain that experience as a leader. And if we don't do that, then we're doing them a disservice, are we not, sir?
I'm glad you brought that up, JD. Just this week, my wife, I wasn't here at the time. I was out actually doing a service call, and my wife said that Dr. Sledge came. It was on Veterans Day. He said Dr. Sledge drove by in his old Army Jeep that he's restored, an old Willys Jeep, the real deal, a 1951 Willys Jeep. Dr. Sledge was a dentist. He is well over 90 years old today. And Dr. Sledge is an important leader. And I'm protracting the story, but stay with me, folks. Dr. Sledge taught fourth grade boys in Sunday school. He was a dentist. And here's what I remember about Dr. Sledge. He would, from time to time, after church, take us bowling. That's reaching out. See, it's not just teaching. It's forming a relationship with those over whom you have been given charge. It's not just bossing them around. It's not just telling them. It's loving them. And there were many, as you just pointed out, the picture that you drew, I'm seeing in my old, the church I grew up in, this older group of deacons and all this, who had a hard time walking up the steps to the podium to pray. And they clung to that. But not Dr. Sledge. Not Dr. Sledge. I remember one Sunday, this was not uncommon, he would say, Mark, would you help with the offering today? He would probably make something up. My hip's sore, Mm-hmm. And he would let me be an usher that day.
Amen.
Now he didn't put me in charge of anything, but he allowed me to participate under his watch care.
Yeah.
And the deacons would come filing out at the beginning of the service, and all the deacons had this somber face, not Dr. Sledge. Hey, how y'all doing? and he just he came by the neighborhood. He had a friend of his who worked with my father, and was showing him the old neighborhood. You know, where people, you know, he's not, and he actually spearheaded. There's a little piece of land here in Monticello, Florida, that he purchased and put up a monument to. You may know who I'm talking about, Boots Thomas. It would not many people know about Boots Thomas, but we've all seen that iconic picture of the Marines raising that flag on Iwo Jima. Well, Boots Thomas was in that group.
Yeah.
And he's from Monticello, Florida. Right. And he put up a memorial. Yeah. He, you know, he was that one that, well, in fact, he broke down the barriers. Because I thought to become a Christian, you had to be a preacher or something like that. And I remember in that Sunday school class, he said, you know, being a Christian doesn't mean you have to be a preacher. You can be a dentist. You can be a carpenter.
Sure. Yeah.
When I heard that, an hour later, I walked down that aisle and gave my life to Jesus Christ.
All right.
Because see how Satan was using that? You know, there was a lot of evangelistic influence back in those days. And folks, I think we all have a Dr. Sledge of some kind, but we need to be a Dr. Sledge.
Amen. Who reaches back in their lives to help the next generation, as you pointed out, Coach. It's a very good analogy, sir.
Wonderful, man. It's hard for me to, you know, he's 90-something. I guess I've got to get this video to him. I actually did a video in memory of not memory of, but in tribute to, you know, Dr. Sledge. But folks, what does the world have to offer? Okay, let's compare the koinonia, the genuine, this bonding that we have in Christ with other groups of association. Okay, how about the country club? How would the country club compare with the church? You will be accepted.
Sad comparison, Coach.
Well, let me say this: the country club, your acceptance there is conditional.
Yeah.
Not in the world of Christ. We welcome everybody, or at least that's what Christ says we do. That's what we're supposed to do.
Supposed to say. Yes.
When we find out as Christians the defects in others, you know, we are not inclined to kick them out. What about motorcyclists? You know, they all just get together. They share quite a bond that I think many of us could learn from, because they help each other unconditionally just because they're a fellow motorcyclist. What if we, the church, did that? I remember stopping because I had to make a phone call. You know, if you're on a motorcycle, it's kind of hard to make a phone call. And I was on the side of the road. A motorcycle was going the other direction. And I heard it slowing down. It turned around and stopped. Hey, brother, you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need help? No, I'm just making a phone call. He said, okay. And then he turned around and went his way. It's so easy to do these things. How hard is it to offer a word of encouragement to a fellow brother or sister in Christ?
You know, there's it takes nothing to do, but it means the world to the folks when you do it, Coach.
It does,
it cost us nothing to offer a kind word or a helping hand. It costs us nothing in most cases.
Well, I'll say this: the cost is low. The cost is low because, see, JD, you do something that very few people do. You intentionally dedicate time to reading people's blogs and then posting a word of encouragement and a link to it. So, yes, there is a cost, JD. You have to invest in reading that blog. I would say that's not a terribly sacrificial price. You probably benefit from reading it, you know?
Absolutely.
You ever read one and said, no, I'm not sharing that one?
Well, there's been a few that I just it's better to say nothing at all than to say something you shouldn't. So you just have to let those go, and it's okay, because what normally happens is they will either step on my toes and ouch, that hurt, right? And I need to reflect and build upon that, or I see that they are confused,
Hmm.
deceived,
Deceived.
lost, not at the same place I am. Sometimes they're way ahead of me, sometimes I'm a little ahead of them. And in those cases, then I need to pray for those people and I need to
Mm.
help them along and see that. And it's all in how you approach it, Coach. The old saying, you catch more with honey than vinegar, right?
Hmm.
And if you talk kind, I there's a young lady that has a wonderful post that says, "Speak the way you prefer to listen."
Hmm.
So be kind in your speech, in your counsel, and people will be a whole lot more receptive to you than if you go, "Nope, you're wrong. That's it. You're out of there."
Well,
And
then,
it makes a big difference.
and you can challenge something if you've read something that you believe to be theologically inaccurate or outright wrong. You don't have to
Yeah.
make that challenge public. You could just contact
Right.
them and say, I read that and am not clear on where you're coming. There's ways that
Yeah.
we can
Sure.
show respect for one another, even when one of us is wrong. If there's a disagreement,
Yeah.
and by the way, what does the Bible say to do when you have a problem with a brother? Post it on the internet.
Go to that person. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right, Coach.
That is step one. I'm always fascinated when I take the time to read your blogs, the
Hmm.
degree of engagement, the comments. And I did not read through them, but I noticed there were a lot of them. Um,
Yes, sir.
what any of them stand out this week in your mind? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Uh, Coach, it was uh, wonderful to see how many people had parents and brothers and siblings and husbands and wives in some cases who had served
mm,
or are serving. And I just kind of close out by folks this week. Think about those people that are serving today, what they're going through, and think about those people that's going to be serving our nation tomorrow. They're vets too, and they deserve our thoughts and prayers also. But
so this blog was sort of an offering of sorts to our veterans.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I wanted to signify that day. Years ago at noon, I would have stopped and had three fingers of scotch to my brothers. I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in many years now. But I actually stopped and just stopped the tractor and set
Mm.
the hay down that I was moving and just spent a few minutes in reflection, uh, thinking about the cost that men and women have paid for the freedoms that we have in this nation. And we're going to lose them if we're not real careful, folks. And it's a terrible price to pay. I think back over my life, and I think of some of those memories, and I think of those skeletons in those closets, and that's where they need to stay. It's a lot less pain associated with them these days. I thank the Lord for that. But there's things that veterans have seen and done, and will see and will do, so that our children, our wives, our mothers never have to see or know about these things. And so when you see a veteran this week, give them a nod, give them a smile, and tell them thank you for your service. Thanks, Coach.
Well, JD, thank you, and you are among those brothers who have defended our country, and we appreciate your service. to this fine
Thanks.
republic and to our Constitution. Thank you, brother. We love you. Can't wait to get a tour around the ranch next week, okay?
All right. Looking forward to it.
There you go, folks. And there is the view high atop the Eagle's Nest studios here at pjnet.tv. It is such an honor to be with you. It's such an honor to have the people on the PJNet team that share with us week in and week out, month in and month out. I'm just blown away at the love, at the dedication, at the teamwork. And we're all just a bunch of volunteers here, It's not... Anyway. All right, well, for me, that wraps it up for this week on pjnet.tv. Friday nights are something special, and I want to make sure to invite you to be here at 9 p.m. Eastern. Steve Hazards takes control of the helm, takes control, and we will have some time of some interesting, we kind of let our hair down, For an hour, we just play some tunes, and he mixes in some jazz and some oldies, and we just have a good time of fellowship together. And then, on or about 10 p.m. Eastern, he will uncork my perspective and comment. I get the night off tomorrow. My carpenter, he's a friend of mine. He's a brother in Christ. We'll be doing some work, not so much on the Eagle's Nest, but on the back porch of the house. We've got some flooring that has split, and some of it has, it needs repair. And so we'll be doing that. But of course, while I've got him here, I'll show him some things. I have some ideas on how we can make improvements in the Eagle's Nest. We're always seeking to do better. He is quite a gifted craftsman as a carpenter. Amazing talent that he has. That's going to wrap it up for me tonight. Other than doing highlights, I also, on Thursday nights, I only have to do one highlight because I wait until either Saturday or Sunday to do the second one because we've got more time. We've got 4 days before we get back together. And it's been a wonderful week. And I just want to thank each of you that make yourself present in the pjnet.tv chat room. It is truly the difference that it makes sometimes, that bonding and that fellowship that we enjoy and those relationships that grow out of it. What a blessing. Okay. Well, before I leave, I want to leave you, of course, with a challenge. And that challenge kind of goes like this. 2 questions. First, what is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And secondly, when was that? Folks, JD shared with us some of the bold, courageous valor and sacrifice that have been made on our behalf. Those pale, as great as they are, in comparison with the sacrifice that Christ made for us. We need to be bold. So I hope that none of us will ever allow ourselves to be satisfied with our answers to either of those 2 questions.